Do you have to start it on your ends too, or just one of them?
No, nope. It says we are live now, but it's still loading.
Ron, we're going to need to start the broadcast.
Yeah.
And
Go for it.
you want to just continue to try to log in?
Yeah, I'll keep working on it. I've never seen this garbage.
Okay.
So
Telling me my password reset link is not valid or expired.
We've started this broadcast. We're having some technical difficulties with Chairman Ron Good. We're asking everyone just to give us a minute, and we'll proceed with our programming. Ron, how about I keep you on the line and you and I kind of go through it together? Maybe we can just try it that way while I've got you on the phone.
Are you on there?
I am. Okay, we'll just try it this way. We're going to duct tape our presentation. Go ahead, Emily.
Oh, sure. I just wanted to ask a quick question from Ms. Marcel Anaya. Are you taking your moderator for the session? Okay. Sorry, I apologize. This is I'm Emily Andre, Department of Water Resources, and new to this application. And as Anacita Augustinez mentioned, we have another speaker, Chairman Ron Good, who planned to join us but having little difficulties logging in. So with that, I'll just make a quick introduction. Emily Alejandrino, Department of Water Resources. I'm actually in the climate change program, but I'm also a tribal liaison with the department with a focus on working on the California Water Plan that you'll hear from Kamiar Gavechi, and as well as the upcoming Tribal Water Summit that we'll hear about with Anacita and Chairman Ron. Did you want to do a brief introduction, Ms. Anacita, and then we'll move to Kamiar, and I can start the PowerPoint?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anacita Augustinez. I'm Tribal Policy Advisor at the Department of Water Resources. I work in the Executive Division, so it's my honor to be here and to work with California Native American tribes throughout the states of California regarding all of the Department of Water Resources programs and projects. I have on the phone with me Chairman Ron Good. He was going to be our fourth panelist. Unfortunately, he's having some difficulties with the programming, logging in. And so I'm going to hold him on the phone, and hopefully, we'll if there's some questions or comments, I can translate that on behalf of Chairman Good. Kamiar?
Yeah, Kamiar Gavechi. I'm also with the Department of Water Resources in California. I manage the Division of Planning, and we're responsible for updating the California Water Plan every 5 years. I appreciate this opportunity to provide you an overview of what we're working on for Update 2023.
Thank you. Oh, and I hear a ring. All right, so I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen, and then I will pop up the PowerPoint
Great.
In a minute.
And while you do that, I just wanted to say that on behalf of Chairman Good is that Chairman Good was one of the very, very early leads regarding our Tribal Advisory Committee regarding the Tribal Water Summit. And prior to that, a Tribal Communications Committee that was convened in 2005. And Kamiar's PowerPoint will give you an understanding and update of the California Water Plan update, its importance regarding the document that's utilized throughout California water planning, as well as how we have engaged tribes throughout that process, beginning in 2005 and convening the 3 water summits to date. And so, Kamiar?
Great. So I'll go ahead and I'll be your slide advancer.
Yeah, thank you, Anacita, and welcome everyone. We can go to the next slide. Hopefully, maybe we'll get Chairman Ron Good joining us before the end of the session. But this is a picture of Chairman Good and myself at the 2018 Tribal Water Summit. Next slide. Next, please. So one of the things that's really important to understand about California is we're a very large state, and we actually have 10 macro hydrologic regions, which are shown on this slide. And each of these hydrologic regions are the size of some other states. So it really requires that we take a regional approach to water management. Next. And California water is all about the extremes. We rarely have an average water year. The blue bars on top show all of the flood events since the late 60s, and the brownish bars on the bottom are the drought events we've had. And as you can see, in some years, we can get both a flood and a drought. And with climate change, these extremes are becoming more frequent and more consequential. Next, please. The other important thing to understand about California water is we have some systemic and institutional challenges that make overcoming other challenges very difficult. One is we have over 2,300 entities in the state that are responsible for managing different parts of our water system, very decentralized. And some of those entities are responsible for setting regulations, and they do those in their silos. So our regulations aren't always aligned, and then sometimes are conflicting. We also really need a lot better data to make decisions, especially with the uncertainties that we're facing with climate change. And then funding is always an issue. And then to spend the money, especially public money, we have to do a lot better job of demonstrating what we get for those investments. Next, please. So this flower diagram represents the different water sectors, and historically and even today, we tend to operate around the periphery of those petals where there's little or no overlap between the water sectors. But to get to more sustainable and resilient water systems and resources, we have to get our water sectors to work toward the center of this flower where there's lots more overlap. And that's what we call integrated watershed management. It's about getting the sectors to work together, to collaborate, bring their different disciplines together in planning water projects that are multi-benefit, that do more than one thing. And then also bring to the collective their different pots of money to implement those projects. Next, please. So the Newsom administration has developed a water resilience portfolio. It was put together by 3 cabinet-level agencies: natural resources, environmental protection, and food and agriculture. And it is really the roadmap for how state government, the executive branch, is organizing our work and our funding around improving and maintaining a diverse water supply, making sure we protect and enhance our natural systems, and looking more to natural infrastructure to do the things we need to do, build better connections, as I mentioned, between the sectors and the different parts of the state, and then get ready for those extreme events. Next, please. So in the last 20 years or so, the California Water Plan has done some new and transformative things. We have really engaged other state agencies, tribes, federal agencies, and stakeholders in our water planning. Climate change is front and center in what we need to prepare for, using that integrated water management approach, and then environmental stewardship and green infrastructure being a big part of those investments. Really managing our water resources for sustainability. That means from environmental, economic, and equity perspectives, improving our data, and making sure that we provide good information to the California legislature and governor's office. Next, please. So we have really, I'm proud of the work that the water plan and our department has done in engaging California Native American tribes, particularly over the 2009 to the current updates of the water plan. And what you see here on the screen are the covers of the tribal communication plan, 3 tribal water summits, and then a collection of tribal water stories. Next, please. So the Tribal Advisory Committee has accomplished a significant amount of work over the last 10 to 12 years. We've developed that communication plan. The Tribal Advisory Committee actually crafted the tribal objective and recommended actions in the water plan, as well as informing the regional reports and the toolbox of integrated watershed management, what we call resource management strategies that include forest management and water and culture, strategies that the tribes really helped lay the foundation. We also have done reports on Californians without safe water and sanitation, and the Tribal Advisory Committee has been a key partner of the 4th California Climate Assessment, as well as the core of the design teams for the tribal water summits. Next, please. So for this update, 2023, we're certainly going to meet what the water code requires. We're going to use the water resilience portfolio as a cornerstone. We're going to continue to engage communities of interest and place, and then meet the Governor Newsom's priorities for climate action. Next, please. So the 3 of the key focus areas that are emerging for Update 2023 is climate adaptation, watershed resilience, and equity. Next, please. For climate adaptation and climate vulnerability assessments, we are doing modeling using analytics for looking at the future of California regions for the next 50 to 70 years. We also are doing more detailed studies in the San Joaquin Valley, where we're having a lot of our critical challenges. Next, please. So focusing on watersheds, it's all about working from the headwaters all the way down to groundwater and looking at all those linkages that are important for bringing the water sectors together. Next, please. And to do that, it's certainly about working in the watershed and the environment, and we have to change the way people do business by developing and building stronger watershed networks. Next, please. So our schedule, we're now here in the fall of 2021. We're just getting ready to convene the various advisory groups, including the Tribal Advisory Committee for this update. Around fall of next year, we'll be circulating an administrative draft of the update, and we want to release a public review draft by winter of 2023. we'll be working with the Tribal Advisory Committee and other interested parties to convene the 4th Tribal Water Summit in the spring of 2023, and then release the final Water Plan 2023 at the end of December of 23. Next, please. And to get more information about our work, we invite you to visit our Water Plan web portal, and we also have a weekly Water Plan e-news, which you can subscribe and get information once a week. I think that's my last slide, and I'll turn it back to you, Anacita.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before I go into the general engagement, I wanted to share some of the talking notes that we spoke to Chairman Good about, that he was going to be looking at, and some of his reflections, and I'm hoping I can do justice, Chairman Good. I actually have him on the phone listening in. Regarding the the impact of participation in the Water Summit. It was, from what he has shared with our team here, is some of the highlights he wanted to share was, the opportunities to survey, and discuss water issues and concerns regionally and statewide from that tribal perspectives. And as you know, many of you who know Chairman Good and the work and his passion, dealing with the drought conditions and effects, with incorporating traditional ecological knowledge regarding good fire and the fire burn practices in his area where he works. He also, is concerned about, the water tables and how we survey that, and of course, the cultural burning practices and fire effects due to climate change and other effects regarding the water issues. Other areas that he wanted to talk about, and I'm certain that we will be sharing more in the future and doing a deeper dive, is examples that he's led through his entire educational and professional career with restoration practices, the meadow restorations, the trail restorations and mapping, and he really was the individual who, as the Tribal Advisory Committee lead, really wanting to put those tribal water stories together to show the impacts and that perspective of waterways and wetlands management, and of course the cultural resources within these ancestral lands. And one of the other topics that the Tribal Water Summit has always touched upon has always been on water rights issues and updates on tribal water rights litigations. Chairman, I just kind of went through a little bit of the notes that you shared with us. Is there anything else that you might want me to share?
That was excellent. And just, real quick, is that where we first started in 2005 with 5 representatives, and in 2008, 32, to 2018, where we had, a full house of 300, representatives from 90 tribes, 67 state agencies, and 14 federal. And that's the kind of interaction that we need to get things done. So
wonderful.
Reiterate that.
I definitely will. So thank you, audience, for bearing with us. I just want to share that Chairman has mentioned that, from his experience and working, within the 2005 Tribal Communication Committee, starting with basically a core member team of five tribal representatives, and then moving into 2008, the interaction grew to a team of over 32. And then by the time we had the 2009 and 2018 Tribal Water Summits, 2 to 3 day summits with over 300 attendees, 90 tribes participating, 67 state agency representatives, and 14 federal tribal representatives. And so I think we're all proud of that progression, and really our goal is maintaining that growth and that outreach. Thank you, sir. If you could advance the slide, Emily. And so really what we wanted to do here today is, to share with you, the importance of the California Water Plan, the requirements to update it every 5 years, and how, due to tribal engagement, we finally have tribal input within the California Water Plan. And specifically, as Kamyar mentioned, the opportunity to develop chapters within the California Water Plan itself, so that the Tribal Water Summit is not acting within its own as a separate entity. We shared with you, the Tribal Water Summit proceedings. We highlight those proceedings, but they are a reflection of the work that has been done by the committee itself within integrating within the California Water Plan update. And so one of the main takeaways I'd like to leave you with is that I really would like to invite you all to join the Tribal Advisory Committee to help us plan the summit, to help us inform the California Water Committee. You'll be working not only as the Tribal Advisory Committee for the California Water Plan and Tribal Water Summit planning team, but you're also going to be assisting the Policy Advisory Committee. So the California Water Plan has a policy advisory committee that covers many representatives throughout the state. And we have, in the past, we've had tribal representatives. However, I think this is the first year that we've made that more a part of the governance structure, with regional representation covering the north, central, and southern parts of California, asking for tribal leadership to be on that team with an alternate, and with the alternates there. And that policy advisory committee will be convening, and that will also be sort of a liaisoning interface with the California Water Plan, DWR, California Water Plan planning team, as well as the Tribal Advisory Committee. Being a part of this, the Tribal Advisory Committee also gives you many opportunities, not only to be informed on the California Water Plan, but also our various other DWR programs and projects. If we want to address some of the issues that we hear regarding grant problems, grant opportunities, we've heard through the various, if you have an opportunity to click that link underneath the gathering basket, plan participation, that will take you to a direct link of all the prior activities within the Tribal Water Summit, and you can go to the proceedings of the summit and look at the recommendations. So many of the things that we hear throughout this conference and many other conferences, when tribal leaders and tribal representatives convene, they fall upon issues of tribal sovereignty, of why aren't grants on a set aside, why aren't why isn't there a tribal place, and where do we have tribal interests within developing guidelines? So there's other opportunities for this committee to take a look at, because the California Water Plan is pretty much a planning document for all public water agencies to use. And I really want to make sure that there's a space within that planning document, that there's tribal perspectives inserted regarding water issues of concern to tribes. When one of the things that I think we did as a from the Tribal Water Summit, and this is an accomplishment that predated my participation. I did not come to the Department of Water Resources until the fall of 2013. And the work from the 2005 to 2013 was very robust, and I was just able to continue to take that baton and keep growing the links that we could go to. But one of the important documents that we did when I looked at the proceedings and the highlights was take some of those proceedings, and we developed a water bond primer that we sent to all state assembly senators and natural resource committee members in how to address tribes, and that when they're looking at legislation, take a look that tribal governments be considered on the same breath, that when you say state and federal, that you will always say tribal, and that there is a space for that type of tribal opportunities in state legislation. As a state agency, we can't advocate on legislation. However, this is an opportunity to help advance these opportunities for legislations through this committee. And so we see our role as supporting that type of opportunity. If we could advance to the next slide. And so these, when you click on that link on that earlier page, it's really great to take a look at just the development. The green summit is our very first summit, and the blue is the second, and the orange is the most recent one from 2018. All of these are available by PDF, and you can take a look at the type of engagement, the agenda topics, and how to advance those topics as we go forward. These are just the proceedings. However, there are other documents showing the full agenda and other proceedings highlights. And obviously, we do want to continue with the tribal water stories, and also reviewing the communications charter. That I think that is a great guidance document that will assist. And if we could advance. And so this is regarding engagement. As I've mentioned, one of our main goals is the invitation to join the Water Summit planning team. We support the planning process through not only financial monetary support from DWR's California Water Plan, but we've also outreached and sought out outside funding, so that we've been able to help provide in pre-COVID days, travel stipends and volunteers reimbursement. We hope that as we plan the next summit, that we will maintain some type of hybrid approach with a virtual opportunities as well as in-person meetings, and then convening the sessions throughout next year for the planning process. And so all are welcome to join. We have opportunities not only for tribes to be there and your tribal representatives, but tribal NGOs, and of course community partners and allies that are doing good work. And if you could refer us to any of those types of individuals that could help advance these goals and opportunities for this type of community engagement, we'd really appreciate that. And I believe that Chairman Good, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
There's probably a lot of our accomplishments that we need to share, but one of the biggest ones that I'm seeing every day is our title of California Native American Tribes, and that is being used in legislation and in all the documents that are coming out from the state, and even federal documents are starting to use that all-inclusive terminology of who we are in the state as tribes.
Great. And so Chairman Good wanted me to relay that in early 2005, with the tribal communications planning documents and charter, that it was one of the big impacts that he has seen utilized today, beginning from that early engagement, is the use of the term California Native American Tribes, to be very inclusive and in recognition of federally recognized tribes as non-federally recognized tribes. That was a terminology really advanced through the Tribal Water Summit of 2005 and 2009. And as many of you know, that got utilized within executive order in B1011, and now recognized through in 1519 by Governor Newsom. So that has now become a language that we all use from the state agency perspective whenever we see legislation, as well as within our grants and any of our strategic documents. We're seeing that use of California Native American Tribes. So thank you, Chairman, for recognizing that and bringing that up. Is there anything else that you'd like me to share?
Well, other than some of the tribes won groundwater cases, and we're still working on the fact that California tribes never relinquished their water rights, and we still are holding that.
Great.
And especially when it comes to groundwater.
Great. Chairman Good wanted me to relay about groundwater issues and the issues of water rights and how California Native American tribes have never relinquished those water rights. I think that's an excellent topic, and as we've mentioned before, the water rights discussion has always been a topic of the Tribal Water Summit planning team. But just to let our audience know, Department of Water Resources, along with Natural Resources Agency and Cali PA and State Water Resources Control Board, is working on convening a water rights conference to take a look at how state agencies address that. And so that's in the planning now. So hopefully we'll be able to unveil a date and time when many of you will be invited, and we hope to see you at that discussion. I think that is definitely something that all of you work with every day within all your various roles within your departments and tribal governments. Is that our last slide, Emily? This last slide provides you with our contact information, Chairman Good's information and cell number, Kamyar Gavici, and myself. And so I really want to thank everyone for joining us today. And obviously there's plenty of time for questions. So we welcome any questions that you may have, and thank you. And I think, Shasta, I see you on the line. I just really want to say thank you for putting on an excellent program. You and your staff, and Paula, I just can imagine how much time and energy has gone through it. It's an impressive schedule organizing all of this. So thank you for this opportunity.
So I guess, let's see. First of all, I just want to make sure, Kamir and Asita, the PowerPoint's down, correct, on your end?
That's correct.
That's
okay, so everyone can see. So let me check if we have any questions here in the chat, and I'll start from the top. Yes, I don't miss anything. Okay. Thank you. As I scroll down here, a lot of welcomes, so it's good to say hi and hello to everybody, and hopefully we can meet again in person soon. So yes, I did upload the PowerPoint to the ACT event, and the link the hyperlink should be active when you open that PDF.
Great. Emily, I do see a note here, Kamyar from Mervyn Wright, a question. Does the current water supply sources take into account and support projected state population growth?
Thank you, Anacita, and thank you, Mervyn, for that question. The water plan updates include two bodies of information. One is what has been the current water uses and the supply sources to meet those uses. And we've now developed a record or a database from 1998 all the way through 2007. And for every update, we continue to add 4 or 5 years of historical record. So to really get a sense of what the current water use and current water supplies are, that's really a good source of information. And it's really the only source of information that covers the entire state of California. The other body of information is what we call our future scenarios. And for that, we actually, using modeling and data, we project and anticipate what scenarios or different futures California may encounter, including population growth, including land use changes, and including climate change impacts. And in update 2009 and 2013 and 2018, we presented the results of that information. And we certainly have that posted on our website and can provide links to that. For the 2023 update, we're actually working to do a more robust climate vulnerability assessment to anticipate what extreme events, both on the flood side and on the drought side, California may experience between now and 2070. And we'll be presenting the results of those analyses in this update of the water plan.
Great. Emily, do you see the question from Sally Manning?
From Sally Manning. Yes, so this is from Sally Manning. The systemic and institutional challenges seem like showstoppers. What are you doing to ameliorate some, and are any good examples?
Thank you, Sally, for that question. I can certainly start, and then Anacita and Emily and Ron, please add in. They are very difficult. So that's why this was the first water plan update, 2018, where we put a spotlight on them, because we know we have groundwater problems. We know we have environmental degradation. We know we have water quality issues. Those things are more tangible, and we can try to get our arms around. The systemic and institutional challenges are really, they're so ingrained in what we do, it's harder to get our arms around. The Newsom water resilience portfolio is making a headway along that line, and so did Governor Brown's water action plan. And in part because it required multiple agencies and their departments to work together to put a water plan together on the state side. On the local side, we're pushing for this integrated regional water management approach, which is really set to break down or reduce those institutional boundaries within areas of the state to come up with more holistic water plans for each area. And then again, back to one of my first slides, because of the size and diversity of California, we have to honor that those plans have to be customized for each of the regions and the watersheds of the state.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, what you just mentioned about that holistic approach. I think one of the big takeaways, Sally, is that because of the level of tribal involvement, we're able to really tell water managers, because the audience of the California Water Plan are the water managers throughout California, not only people who manage tribal water, but all water. And understanding that when you say a tribal perspective, it's just not one perspective. These are regional approaches. Tribes cover very many different regions and very many different perspectives. Because when you work with state agencies, they say, oh, we have one tribal rep. We've got the tribal perspective covered. Or that person there fills that seat on our community engagement and outreach. So our goal has been to show throughout this planning process the importance of the amount of 200 plus California tribal nations and their perspectives, where they live, and also you talked about systemic institutional challenges, but obviously our eyes are open to the systemic racism of how water has been managed as well. And so this is an opportunity to take an institutional document and make it something different that has not really existed in the past, and it's really has changed in just in the last 3 iterations that I've seen from 2013. You're talking about potentially some good examples. I really do think what Chairman Good mentioned about understanding California Native American tribes, and that way when state agencies do not works with all tribes and all grants, beginning in 2014 with the Proposition 1 water bond that spelled out California Native American tribes all being eligible for water bonds. And so that was a very much a groundbreaking opportunity and a good example. And Emily, I think you see another question.
Yes, from Mervyn Wright. Does the projected growth modeling produce results that deplete the existing sources for water supplies? And how does drought impacts affect the data results for the plan?
Yeah, thanks, Mervyn, for that question. I'll take the first shot. The future scenario modeling that we do is kind of in two steps. One is we do the vulnerability assessment, and that is assuming that all the current system and management actions stay the same, what would conditions look like if we do have increasing population, land use changes, and climate change? And that in that step, we definitely do see that all else the same, our supply sources are going to be depleted and under significant pressure, particularly because of climate change. I will note that on the urban sector of California, it uses on average about 20% of all the water that's used in our developed water supply. Agriculture uses, if you don't count the environmental water that's managed by the entities, agriculture uses about 80%. But if you also include the environmental water, it's a 20% urban, 40% agriculture, and 40% managed environmental water. The other big part of our future scenarios is what we call the adaptation strategy evaluation. So given these increasing vulnerabilities we may encounter, what can we do in the way of projects, programs, and investments to reduce that risk and that vulnerability? And we also, in the 2013 update of the water plan, showed some of that, some of the effectiveness of those strategies. But to be real clear, most of the water investments and actions in California are made by local entities. So the role of the state is to really provide the technical assistance, the financial assistance when there is public funding, and then oversight and regulations to kind of make sure that we meet our state interests.
Great, thank you. We do have a follow-up question to that come here from Sally Manning. So she has a simple question. How much urban wastewater could be recycled?
Thank you, Sally. Water recycling is one of the supply sources that we include in our water balances in the water plan. And the urban water or wastewater that's treated and reused is a very, very small fraction right now of California's water supply portfolio. It's recognized that there's a lot more opportunity to treat urban wastewater and to recycle it for various uses. And in the water plan, we have, remember I mentioned those resource management strategies. One of them is municipal recycled water. And in there, we show what potential we have for additional water recycling, and then what it would cost to achieve that.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Can I add a comment?
Yeah, I have a comment from Ron Good. Go ahead, Ron.
It's a bigger picture, but I'll try to break it down. So our water supply use 20% to our upper watershed environment and another 20% to our open storage system, which of dams and lakes. When we talk about 100% water, we're talking about 100% after it leaves the dam, the lower dam. And we've already lost 40% due to antiquated hydro plants, the deforest thickness of the canopy that the wildfires are burning.
Okay.
So you got all of that, and that's one of the reasons why we as tribal people are pushing for the underground aquifers to be filled when we have the excess water.
Okay, so if I don't know if you could hear that, but Chairman Good mentioned that there is a push by tribal governments to want to fill underground aquifers because of a loss of water, and that the bigger picture of the water supply is that we lose 20% in the upper watershed, and as well as 20% to the open system of just open lakes and reservoirs. And that when we're doing our modeling, we're looking at 100% of water after it leaves the dam and not accounting for that already 40% loss. And so that's a comment that he wished to make. Does that change your reflection on some of the questions, Kamyar, or how is that put into that that modeling scenario?
Yeah, so Chairman Good's points are spot on. And if you recall, our push for this update is to go from headwaters through groundwater so that we can capture the entire water cycle and show both the vulnerabilities that exist and will with climate change, but also the opportunities if these water sectors work together. What more can we do? And Chairman Good just touched on a really big one, and that is when we have those flood events, and we know we're going to have more and more severe flood events, how can we get that water into the ground so that that becomes our savings account for the next drought or dry period that we're going to encounter? And in California, we've dubbed the term flood managed aquifer recharge, or FloodMAR, to capture that whole concept of bringing our flood management and our groundwater management closer together, and doing it in a way that provides environmental benefits. Because when you spread the water on ag lands for recharge, that creates new habitat for terrestrial species. And what our modeling is indicating, as you rebuild the aquifer level, it reconnects to the streams, and that provides more flow for the fish, particularly during those drier times.
Great. And Emily, I hope that we can find that link for the FloodMAR program, and that there's going to be a workshop coming up in the next week or two.
Yeah.
You actually want to mention that, Kamyar?
Yeah.
And I can upload that flyer.
Yeah, on November 8th, 9th, and 10th, we're holding a FloodMAR public forum. This will be the third one. We're holding it every other year. And we have, it'll be virtual and lots of topics covered, both what people are, the pilot projects and the case studies, but also the modeling. What is the modeling show of what more we could do by bringing our flood system, groundwater system, and ecosystem management together? And there is a FloodMAR web portal, and we can provide that link. I'll try to do that before the end of the session.
I think, if I'm reading this correctly, it looks like we got about a minute left.
Yes.
I don't know if there's any more questions that's come aboard. And I really do want to thank you for allowing us to patch in Chairman Good. Chairman Good, thank you so much. I'm really sorry that we couldn't get to see your face and have you right on screen, but I think this worked.
Thank you, too.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. And as Kamyar mentioned, I'll go ahead and, thanks Kamyar for putting the FloodMAR forum link on the chat.
Great.
And I'll be uploading additional materials on the application right after this session.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us, especially you, Chairman Good, for bearing with us through the technical difficulties, and to the audience and the organizers. We really appreciate this opportunity to be included on this agenda and your important annual meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
stay on.
Okay, we will.
Should I stop the broadcast, the recording?
Yes.